Welcome to the Government Affairs Committee meeting for the month of November 2021. Thanks everybody for coming. We've got some guests, I believe. We've got Representative McGrew is here. Good morning. Good morning. We have a couple other guests, it looks like, in the back. We have Lewis from the Village Voice. Jim Zahn is here. And who's that hiding back there? I can't see.
Steve.
Oh, Steve is hiding back here in the back. So thanks so much, everybody, for attending. We did send out the minutes for the last meeting for approval. So anyone has any corrections to the minutes? Bob had one small one.
There was one correction. The minutes went out after the meeting, not before.
Yeah.
That was a good catch.
Minor correction. So seeing no others, we'll accept that correction and we'll accept those minutes as approved. Today we have an exciting guest speaker with us to talk about some new things that are going down in Hot Springs. So I'm going to let Karen go ahead and introduce our speaker.
Thank you so much. So I'm excited about our speaker today. Melinda Zarte is here, and I kind of worked on how to pronounce that last name. So then I got her first name wrong when I came in the door. So, you can't ever feel too good about yourself. I want to thank David Childs for even recommending that we get Melinda here to talk about Cristal Boutique, and I'm excited about that. Melinda is a resident of Hot Springs Village for the past 6 years. She relocated here from Austin, Texas. Her background includes over 20 years in the resort and hospitality, sales and marketing, creative design and staging of hotels, as well as new models and resale homes in the resort and private communities in parts of the United States, Mexico, and the Caribbean. She has a home staging business called Home Stagers, and she's currently the president and CEO of Resort Consortium LLC, which is currently developing the Cristal Boutique Hotel, Residence Club, and Spa to be located on 2 tracts of land on either side of Diamante Boulevard within Hot Springs Village. I'm excited to have Melinda here to present her dream for Cristal Boutique Hotel, and I think it's going to be a really big coup for Hot Springs Village to have this. So I will just turn it over to Melinda.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you all for giving me an opportunity to come and speak to you today and share some information about what I feel is a pretty exciting project that will, I think, really offer some amazing enhancement for many different aspects of Hot Springs Village. Having moved here about 6.5 years ago, I quickly became very aware that there was a real kind of a limited lodging available, and began talking to some of the people and found that it was virtually impossible to have golf tournaments that lasted more than a single day because of lodging issues. And so really since I moved here, I've been kind of just working on this, putting ideas together. And about 1.5 years ago, it all kind of came together, and I was contacted by Brandon Tedder, who happens to be the current owner of those 2 tracts. We began to talk and entered into an agreement to develop it as a small boutique hotel, residence club, and spa. And what I want to communicate is that it's going to be, thank you, it's going to be a small project. It won't take up a huge footprint in the village, but it will have, I think, a really significant impact and bring a lot of visitors here who are the type of people who will want to become residents, who you will enjoy having as friends and residents of the village, and that it will really, I think, bring a lot of focus to the village in a new way. So it is designed as a small resort with lodging units, all horizontal. It's all going to be single story. It will have a full service spa as well as an outdoor pool complex, hot tubs, dry sauna, all of the expected spa services. Also a small conference center, and meeting areas for corporate retreats, weddings, that kind of thing. It's not going to be sizable enough to have really significant conferences. We don't have the room, and frankly, I don't have the interest in pursuing that from a business model standpoint. So I'm just going to assume that you all don't know very much about this. So if you've heard it before, I know a few of you have heard it until you're blue in the face. So I'll appreciate your patience with me on this. But right now, it is scheduled to have 14 lodging buildings that will be a duplex design. Each one will be 2-bedroom, 2-bath luxury units with kitchens, full kitchen, office area because people work everywhere that they are now, and outdoor decks. These would be considered in the luxury category, but I would not call it 5-star because that's just not what we're about here in Hot Springs Village. But they will be very nice, very high quality. We'll have, as I mentioned, a conference center, classrooms for yoga and fitness and nutrition and that sort of thing. A really nice outdoor pool complex and a poolside bar and light cuisine cafe. Just some imagery to show you. And again, we're in the design stages right now. We don't have everything finished, but there's an enormous amount of activity occurring right now around that design. So just to kind of give you an idea, I want to take advantage of the natural beauty of this area. I don't want to take out all of the trees. We want it to feel as natural as possible and take advantage of walking paths, the beautiful, just natural setting. We plan to use a lot of natural stone and, if at all possible, locally sourced timber for much of the project. Again, the spa, it won't be huge, but it will be a full-service spa with 4 treatment rooms, massage, dry sauna, a eucalyptus steam room, and we will have a small fitness center because people expect that, and so that'll be a part of it. I mentioned fitness, wellness, and nutrition classes. That's a really big thing. We all are, I think, uber focused on health these days because of what's been going on, but it's been a real trend anyway for the last 5 to 10 years. Health and wellness, fitness is just so important. And for the target market, which is primarily retirees and soon to be retired folks, that is just so important that we really want to focus on that and make it a big part of what we're offering in the way of services. Again, just some images as far as what we have in mind for natural landscaping and peaceful walking paths. We expect to have some weddings, and that has been, I think, a real problem in this area as there are such limited wedding venues. So we will have, again, we aren't going to be set up for a huge wedding, but for a beautiful small wedding, it's going to be perfect. We will have a small conference center for those retreats and those meetings. And I know meeting space here has just become a real issue. And so perhaps we can assist with some of that. So we won't belabor this. We all know we have great golf here, but not everyone knows that. And that's one of the biggest things. So when we were putting together this presentation, we absolutely wanted to draw the attention to the golf, which is absolutely amazing here. And there's no other place in the country and possibly in the world that has what we have here as far as amenities. It's kind of the best kept secret. And we want to draw some attention to it. It's not going to be for everybody because we don't want everybody here either. But we want to kind of sing our own praises. And this is one of the best ways, is those fantastic golf courses. So, again, some of the other things that we're focusing on that are so wonderful, over 30 miles of wooded hiking and biking trails. That's amazing. It's as good as Northwest Arkansas as far as the amount and number of trails. What we don't have is just attention being given to it in the same way. So we plan to take advantage of that. It's already here. It's a beautiful benefit. And then, of course, all the wonderful water sports and 11 lakes within a short drive of our location. Absolutely amazing, and we want people to know about it. And again, I'm not telling you all anything that you don't really know already, but this is the way we're presenting it as we're showing it to people outside of the area. And then we're going to be Hot Springs Village best marketing arm, and we know that, and that's fine with us. We want everyone that we're talking to know what's here, and there is so much here. And again, it's just kind of a well-kept secret. So we hope to begin sharing that news. Okay? And I did set in front of everyone just a single sheet of paper that has some links and also the information on how you can contact me. There's so much more information that I can share with you. Anyone who wants to see the project brief, the executive summary, or even the full business plan is absolutely invited to contact me, and I'd be glad to email it to you. So, as far as the design of the tracks, the way that it's laid out, if you are familiar with Diamante Boulevard, as you go past the little, I guess it was a guard gate area initially, on the right side is a larger tract. It's 5.71 acres. On the left side, it's 3.25 acres. We will have both sides. On the right side will be the hotel conference center, the main entry area, and the bulk of the lodging units, as well as the poolside bar and grill and the pool complex. We had originally thought about moving the spa over to the other side and having it be separate, but my architect and designer, he was just here from Atlanta last week, and he said, you know, we can orient this all so that the spa feels like it's a separate building, even though it'll just be a separate wing of the main building. So I think that's going to be the design plan. And then on the smaller tract across the road, there will be additional lodging units or residences. We may actually put some residences over there because this is going to be a residence club as well as a hotel. And what is a residence club? It's a situation where people can purchase real estate in a fractional interest. And ours will be 1/5 interest, which is 10 weeks. So our owners will have 10 weeks of ability to use their units. And if they don't want to use that whole 10 weeks, they have the right to put it into the lodging pool. They don't have to, but they have the option to do that. The company that we are working with for all of the marketing and the management is deeply experienced in resort fractional marketing, and they're so good. They're, I think, the top in the industry. They've been doing it for 30 years. Very beautiful projects, lots of them that they've successfully marketed. And they also will manage the property after it's complete. The company also has an international luxury exchange program, which all of our owners will have an opportunity to participate in as well. So there are a number of different benefits that come with this particular company, and I'm pretty excited about working with them. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I can talk about this all day, I promise. I'm so excited. This is a dream of mine, and I'm just really, really excited that it's all kind of coming together now after lots of work.
What's
So.
your timeline?
That's a great question, and it keeps kind of moving out because of COVID and various other things. I think that realistically, we had hoped to be able to begin breaking ground this month. I think more realistically, it's going to look like March of next year,
Okay.
just based on how things are kind of playing out right now. So it will be, one of the questions that I'm often asked is, what if it doesn't work? That's a great question. And I have learned to have kind of plan A, B, and C in that event. One of the things that I feel really strongly about is that I don't want this project to be burdened with debt, a lot of debt. And it doesn't have to be, because it can be pre-sold. These units can be pre-sold, and we can build it in stages. We can build it out in stages. So we're going to be starting with 2 buildings. Again, that's 4 units. 2 buildings plus the pool complex and the poolside bar and grill. That'll be the first thing that is built. And then as the marketing, really the momentum begins to kick in and the marketing is occurring, then we'll add units. And the design is being structured so that we can very easily do that without it being enormously disruptive to the neighborhood and to the area. What if it doesn't work? Well, if it doesn't work, we can sell lots for homes. We can build patio homes. If we build it out and for some reason it doesn't work well as a hotel, it could be converted into assisted living because it's all single story. And all of this is very deliberate. We want to be sure that that it fits into the village and is a real benefit for the village. So some of these things have been really thought through very, very thoroughly. So there are other options if for whatever reason it doesn't work. And having been in the hospitality and resort business for many years, I've seen several things that I would have never expected could possibly happen. 9/11, a worldwide credit meltdown, a worldwide pandemic. I mean, you just have to be kind of prepared for the unusual and the unexpected. So we do have some different ideas about how we could convert it into something that would be functional and useful and still bring a lot of benefit to the village. Okay? Question?
Three brief questions. The first one, I know you said how many rooms and duplexes and 2 bedrooms and all of that.
Yes.
But I am both not smart enough, and secondly, it's too early in the morning for me to do the math. How many total heads
Yeah.
can be in there at a given time?
Right now, it is 20, it will be 28 units at the time it's fully built out. It will be set up with lock-offs so that those 2-bedroom, 2-bath units can be locked off, and a single bedroom and bath can be put into the lodging pool. So 56 total beds. Heads on beds is the way, we say it in the industry.
56?
56 total.
Second quick question. You talk about the ownership or whatever, I may not use the right words,
Sure.
for 10 weeks a year. And then you also said that this would be one property within an international group. So is that 10 weeks what somebody is buying anywhere in the world, or is that 10 weeks that would be specifically here?
It's 10 weeks that would be specifically here, and then the exchange program encompasses properties all over the world that have different structures. So it just allows someone to take perhaps 2 weeks or 3 weeks and exchange it with someone, in Italy that has 2 or 3 weeks, or in Florida or wherever. Yeah.
And the last question, this is basically a traffic question. You're gonna be having activity on both sides of Diamante.
Right.
Just off of DeSoto. So have you done any kind of traffic study or anything about how much you're gonna have people going back and forth across Diamante, right just as it turns off of DeSoto? And already, how many cars or how much traffic's already coming through there each day? And is there any potential for your cross Diamante traffic to sort of back things up?
Yeah, we've had this question come up quite a lot, and we have not done a formal traffic study, just frankly because we just felt like it wasn't necessary, because we have been watching that intersection and watching the traffic on it pretty consistently. The one thing the question that I get is, what about all of the construction vehicles? How's that gonna work? The entrance to the project is not as close to the DeSoto intersection as you might think. It's a little farther up. It's up on that rise. So that should allow for enough time. The other thing is, there won't be anyone parked along Diamante Boulevard. That will be prohibited. We'll actually put a temporary construction road that takes people right in, and they'll be parking in a designated area for any of the workers, the contractors. That will all be set in advance. So there will not be a disruption right along Diamante. We want to be good neighbors to the Diamante Club and the Diamante owners, and we don't want, this is going to be disruptive. We know that, it just is. Anytime you have a construction project, there's some disruption and noise, but we want to minimize that to an acceptable level so that everyone feels good about this and feels like it's something that is worthwhile and will really add value to the village. So, any other questions?
I have a question. Is there anything that we can do as a government affairs committee to help you?
Yes. You can share the information, and I'm gonna just put it out there that I am looking for some founding club members and investors right now. Of course, they have to be qualified investors, as one would expect. This is a private offering. And I would love to have local people, because they're gonna be the very best partners in this, because they know this area. I talked to a lot of people in New York and Florida and other places, and when I say Arkansas, they just kind of go, what? So they don't understand what we have here. And those of us who live here or live in the area know full well what we have here and what the potential is. So
When you say founding club member, what do you mean?
we're looking for an initial investor group to just get us kicked off and get the building started. And that's just going to incorporate the marketing, finishing up all of the plans and specs, and also all of the marketing materials, which that is a sizable job, and I want it to be done really well. And again, the company that we're working with is top-notch. So, and again, if anyone has questions about that, just have them call me and I'll be glad to share. I've got a full package of information that I can send to anyone who's interested. So, any other questions? Guess not.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, and we
My
really
pleasure.
appreciate it. We appreciate what you're doing for Hot Springs Village. We're all doing our best to not have people turn their nose up when people say Arkansas. The rest of the country. I've seen that personally many times, just like you have, and I think we're making a positive contribution to not make it look that way so much
Absolutely.
anymore. So
I really-
I
Once
encourage
people
you to do
learn,
that.
they're just,
Absolutely.
they're bowled over. They
Right.
can't believe it.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely
just,
right.
it's really something.
Yeah.
So we're all kind of on that same team.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, let us know anytime, anything we can do to help. If we can help you with the state, we can help. Representative McGrew is here, represents us at the state level.
Wonderful.
Anything that we can do to help you, on that level, with the tourism boards or anybody else.
Great.
Please feel free to reach out and we'll do our best to help you.
Okay, perfect, and I will be in touch with you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for coming.
My pleasure. Thanks. We can just, there we go. Thanks, Karen.
Same way you don't turn on.
All right, thanks. You're welcome to stay, or if you'd like to shout out, that's fine too. Whatever you'd like to do is fine.
I'm gonna go ahead and scoot.
Okay.
Because I've got some conference
Busy.
calls.
I know,
Thank you
I
all
know
so
how that
much.
feels. All
Yes. Thanks, everyone.
right, thank you so much. Okay, we'll proceed on with the meeting. Just a couple announcements from my side. I did do a presentation to the board a couple of weeks ago, just a brief update on the activities that we've been doing here at the Government Affairs Committee, kind of going through our list of priorities, which we had published previously, and kind of a status update on those. I assume it was well received. We received no questions, so I hope that went well. I did press pretty hard on some issues that we'll talk about in a few minutes relative to lobbying efforts and things that are happening at the state and federal level that we really need the village to be focused on. We'll talk about that here shortly. First up, Joni's going to tell us a little bit about what's going on at the board level.
Well, as most of you know, what's going on at the board level is, the number one thing is, November the 15th, we will know if we have an assessment increase here in the village. And, the groups that have worked to get us to where we are right now has been fantastic. And when you talk about volunteers, and as you said, you gave a presentation, there were no questions. It's amazing to me, all of the volunteer hours and hours that go on in the village. And every month I read those minutes and listen to the quarterly reports by the chairs, and afterwards I just have to shake my head. I mean, it's thousands of hours a quarter that go on in the village for volunteer. Just like every one of you, I'm sure, you're volunteering to be on here right now. But you do, besides sitting in the chair, you're doing work. And I know that I get emails from Keith frequently. I ignore him because not because I want to, but because we've had so many other things going on. And the board is just a very small fraction of what goes on in the village. It's the volunteers and the people that really have their heart here. So the assessment increase or not, whether it's voted in or not, really lays out a path for the future of the village. So I will be waiting like everyone else on the 15th to find out where we're going. And it affects us all. So that's my update from the board. Right now we are tunnel visioned, focused on the assessment increase, and we're waiting on that so we can decide what we do next if it does fail. So Plan B and C are not worked out yet because it depends on a lot of the vote and how things go. And as to whether we have another vote after that, if it fails, or if we skip that because it appears there's no reason to have one, then we go into our next steps. And I dread that. I honestly do, because we'll make no one happy. So I hope that we get an assessment increase because we need it. And that's all I have.
All right.
Thank you for all of your time you put in. Some of you are on more than one committee, I know, and it's been pretty eye-opening to me as the board chair to see just how much goes on by volunteers. So, thank you all.
Okay. Thank you very much. John Paul, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, we continue to work on the areas of marketing and through our discovery packages and bringing people to the village. I've said before now that the big cities are doing our marketing for us and running people out, and we've got to make ourselves known of where we need to come, and that is a big focus for the future. The other thing we need is rooftops when they get here, and with the sales so good that we don't have any inventory at this time, we've got builders interested, and with the lots we have, we're trying to group a bunch of lots and build neighborhoods now, and hopefully we can get many rooftops built in the next 2 years, and that's a focus. The other focus is gate security. We know we've got to look to technology in the future to help us with that, and those are really what we're focused on at this time.
Yeah, there's a lot of building going on. I mean, I see houses going up all over the place. So I think, certainly as much as the builders around here can support, I think that's the challenge. And I think reaching out and trying to find more builders and developers is going to be a good thing too.
We have a few lots left on lakes. We have a few lots left on golf courses.
Right.
We have a few in view lots, but most of the building in the future is going to be neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the Renaissance project in Ciega, it's kind of opened their eyes to what can happen with the neighborhood. And I think that's where we're going to go. We've got 4 builders very interested in doing that. And our goal next year is for 150 houses. I think that's low. I think we can get to 200, and with a little help from them. So that's our focus.
One question I had on the Ciega neighborhood, was that new people coming to the village buying those houses, or people moving from existing houses into smaller houses?
Well, that's a very interesting point, and something that one of the builders told me the other day that I had no idea. It opened my eyes after 25 years of living here, that the people that move to the village move 2.5 times once they get here.
Mm.
And so there's a little bit of both, but that was an interesting statistic to me. And he said, I don't care who builds the house, I'm going to build them another one later on, because they're going to move 1.5 more times. Mm-hmm. So that was a very interesting statistic.
Yeah, I've been hearing a little bit of that too. I mean, people, as the real estate market heated up and people are looking to sell maybe larger houses or houses on the lake to move to other houses or smaller houses, but unfortunately there aren't any to move to.
Well,
so.
and like they were talking, the sweet spot is 1,800 to 2,300 square foot, less than $300,000, and flat and 1 story, and that's a lot of people. Mm-hmm. When I came 25 years ago, you had to reinvest the money out of your house in order not to get taxed on it. So a lot of people overbuilt. A lot of people built 3,500 to 5,000 square foot houses, and they're in their mid-70s or older now, and they want out. They don't want to leave.
Right.
And but they're having trouble finding some in that that niche, and that's what the niche is right now.
Yeah. Good. Thanks, John Paul. Next up, we'll talk a little bit about broadband services. Keith.
Just everybody's hopefully aware that First Electric's coming in next week to have their little meeting. So people hopefully will go to that, and they can lay out and potentially get online for that. And same thing is that First Electric is pushing forward with trying to get grant money from the from their side of the house, as well as been working with Katrina and John Paul's staff to try to work from the village to put in a grant application for some of the construction cost. So that's going to be a bigger challenge, to see if some of that's the locating and marking that's going to take with the effort
Right.
there, so. But that's kind of the biggest thing that's going on broadband.
Right.
The meeting next week, will that be here or where will it be?
It's in Coronado
Coronado
Center.
Center.
Coronado
Coronado
Center.
Center.
November the 9th
Yeah.
at Coronado Center at 2
2
o'clock.
2 o'clock.
And that's
They've-
for the Saline residents
Yes.
that want to know what's going
Going
on
on.
and to ask questions.
They actually have done a pretty good job of marketing. I've received, I think, 2 or 3 letters and postcards from
Yeah.
them. One kind of a general one about the fact they're coming, and then one set that was specifically that said that I live in an area where they are coming, to come to the meeting, which I think they're going to start over kind of the Diamante area over in that side. But so yeah, I mean, I
They're
think
gonna
they've
start
done a pretty
right, they're
good.
gonna come in the east gate.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
I mean, I even got one for the bakery that said they were
Yeah.
coming to our office complex there. So I mean, I think that's all good, and I think the more they market, the better we will be. I do think that it does create some challenge for us on the west side of the village. And that's an area that we need to put some more focus, I think, to figure out what we can do on the west side with the Garland County side, because First Electric won't be covering any of those people. And we kind of already know where AT&T stands. I think we can potentially push a little bit harder on Suddenlink if we were to find someone else that wants to come in there. So, I mean, I think that's another area that we really need to push some attention. I think we've got a reasonable solution, looks like, coming to the Saline County side. We don't have anything to tell the people that live on Garland County side right now at all about what we might be able to do to help them. And there are big areas on the Garland County side that don't have good service that, we need to find a way to address. So I think that's another focus point where we need to be looking. I participated with the broadband committee in Hot Springs. It was successful in bringing Ritter Communications to Hot Springs. Maybe there's ways we can, if we can show Ritter, that, it can be done based on what First Electric's doing. Maybe we can figure out a way to potentially get them interested. I think there are things we need to look at there. As Keith said, running new lines underground creates a fairly substantial cost to the POA. Because we can't identify where the existing utilities are in the ground, and they break one, we have to fix it. So, I think that us looking at, from the POA's perspective, trying to find some grant money, having a focus on that from the POA itself, the leadership, I think is going to be incredibly important, because that could be, more than $1 million if we were to get somebody to come and try to do the whole village. Could be pretty substantial. It's probably more of an issue even on the west side than it is on the east side, because the infrastructure is so much older there.
Yep.
Right? So I think that's a critical thing that, we really need, leadership at the board level and others to kind of focus on.
And this is where you're gonna need to focus on guys like that.
Right.
And Senator Sample,
Yes.
who's aware of this, and actually sits on the leadership, the executive committee for some of that distribution of funds. So it needs to be coming out of the POA, a lobbying effort to say, this is important for us.
Keith, originally, there was a meeting here, it's been several months ago, in the card room, actually, with First Electric, when they said that this is what they were going to do. And my question to them then was, what about the west side? And their answer was that they were talking, I was under the impression they were talking to Garland County about who is Energy.
Yes.
With energy.
Yeah, and that they were not going to do something like that.
Yeah, Energy is not getting into the broadband business.
Right, and so it was a possibility that they could do that.
I think
Did anything come from that?
First Electric wants to, their task from their board of directors is to provide the service to all their current members first.
Right.
So, you think about it, it's not only the village, it's throughout Saline County,
Sure.
it's throughout
Right.
other areas. So they need to get through that You know, it's $150 to $200 million total project out there. So once they get through all that, and, you know, it's not gonna happen overnight here in the village.
Right.
And a lot is dependent on how fast they go and how fast the POA can mark and do everything else. That's why it's critical to try to go out and see if we can get some of the state broadband money to get the marking and the repairs done, or else that's gonna be a slow point, because the POA cannot keep up with what the First Electric wants to do. I mean, they wanna come in there with gangbusters.
Yes, and we don't have the staff to do it.
We don't have the staff to do it. So that's where it's key for the POA to get the application in, and then the lobbying effort with our elected officials at the state level to see if we can get some of that grant money.
And when they bring that in, does that include smart meters, electrical meters?
I don't think, no.
First
that's-
Electric already has smart meters on every customer in the village.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know
Yes.
that.
Not everybody. I got a phone call from the lobbyist from AT&T about 3 weeks ago that was asking me a lot of questions about the village. And, you know, and I encourage him all, and I'll tell you, first of all, I'm not a fan of AT&T. And I don't think anything's gonna come of it, and I hope it will, but obviously, the competition and all has spurred some interest to them, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah,
I
interesting,
got-
on the smart meter project, there were hundreds of millions of dollars allocated by the federal government for smart meters about 10 or 12 years ago. First Electric took advantage of that and put smart meters on almost all of their customers. Entergy did not. Entergy is just now starting to roll out smart meters in their market, so, but there's none of that federal money left. And some, like the Chattanooga Electric Utility, where I went and visited with the Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce, they use that smart meter money to actually put in broadband service and smart meters when they put their smart meters in, and that's why they're so far ahead.
I
of the
assume
rest
that
of the
that's
country.
why they really wanted to
Yeah.
run fiber optic.
They have
I didn't realize that.
yeah, they're not using the Connect First system to do smart metering. They have a completely separate smart metering solution that sends limited low-rate data over the power line to get information about your meter.
Okay, thank you.
I got one thing to add on broadband.
Yep.
Lonnie sent me an email Wednesday. He says, I just received this letter, and he says, I'm going to forward it to you. And then pretty soon he calls me, and he says, well, I just found out I can't share this information yet. He said, we're meeting Tuesday, and I don't know if it's the same meeting or what's changed, but he says, we're meeting Tuesday with the elected officials of Saline County, some of the school districts in Saline County, and the contractor. And he says, after that meeting, he says, I should be able to share the information that I just received in this letter. And his other comment was, if anybody can provide him with any input between now and Tuesday, to please give him a call or email me. And I told him I would pass that on. Now, it sounds to me it may be different than one here in the afternoon, or something changed, I don't know. But he did tell me that it wasn't really, the meeting he was attending really wasn't open to the public, because they didn't want a bunch of the public coming in right now, whatever they were gonna discuss. And I said I would pass that on.
Who did you get the email?
Who was it? Who was it from again?
Lanny
Lanny.
From Lanny?
Yeah, Wednesday, he called me.
And this is specific to Saline County?
Pardon me?
Saline County?
Yep.
Yeah.
As
Because
he said,
it's
Saline County elected officials.
a huge
I'm a Saline
footprint.
County
so-
elected official, and I don't know
Yeah.
anything about it.
I don't know. That's what he told me Wednesday.
Okay.
He said it was kind of, he said it wasn't really open to everybody, and so I didn't quite understand what he was saying on the whole thing, but,
Yeah.
anyway, I told him I would pass it on. He says, yeah, please pass it on, and tell him anyone give me any input, to give me a call.
What is
So I
he,
wrote-
what would he like input on, I guess is the
I
question.
don't, anything, I don't know. I mean, he was very vague on it. He was really vague on the whole thing.
I mean, I think we've published a lot of data and things on the broadband situation here in the village, including, topo maps and densities and everything else that we've used for state grants and others. So, I mean, we can certainly pass along any of that he needs,
I
but,
don't know, I just told him I'd pass on his
Okay.
information.
okay. So again, there's substantial funds, you know, that I think are available, and we need to really focus on doing that because it could be fairly expensive to the village, but again, it's gonna be kind of absolutely a requirement when we start looking at building. You saw that she's got workspaces and offices in these hotels. Yeah, you know what kind of internet service they have over there, Diamante? AT&T, and it's not very
Yeah, it's
good.
not very good.
So, I mean, it's gonna be a challenge, right, when we start seeing those things grow, here in the village, so.
Greg,
Yes, yes, sir. Yeah,
got a question for the board members. Has the board looked at, or the Public Works Committee, or who looked at using ground penetrating radar to locate their lines?
That's one of the first things we'd spend the grant money on, is the ground penetrating radar, because he knows that that's what we need.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay.
all right, anything else on broadband, anyone? Anyone have any info on Garland County, things going on in Garland County? We still need to kind of find someone, I think, to focus on the Garland County side, or the Tri-Lakes MPO, which I don't believe we have anyone from. We have a seat, I think, on the board of
Is-
Tri-Lakes, right? That,
Is
And
Bob McLeod
Robert-
going to that now?
I assume so.
Yeah, I think he was the guy designated to go there. So there's a board member designated
Yes,
for
to be on the,
MPO,
from the board.
okay.
Bob McLeod.
I mean, it'd be great if we could get some information, if there's anything we can do to help with that, or kind of understand if there's something we need to work, because as we work through all the other planning agencies, I think it's important for us to have a coordinated effort, you know, not just with Tri-Lakes, but Metro Plan and everybody else, around that, so. Sam, legislative,
Only on another thing, Keith will probably cover it, is how Lanny talked about that the district maps are out. He said it was kind of confusing. And he said
Yeah.
he hadn't seen the final.
There's a whole topic coming up on that.
Yeah, we'll have that in
We'll have
new
a whole
business.
topic on
we're
that.
gonna talk about that in new business.
So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the esteemed gentleman to my left here and let him fill you in what's happening, other things in Little Rock.
All right,
Well, I don't have a whole lot to report. They have sent us notice that we'll be called back into session on November the 29th to look at reducing the tax. They've kind of brought us up that the tax is at 5.9. They're expecting to reduce it to 5.5, and over a 3 or 4 year period, get it down to 4.9. Right now, there is in excess of about $1 billion in the state funds, and so we've met with the Department of Finance Administration and think that this is going to work. The governor's in favor of it, and the governor's pushing it. You know, the governor's, we can't call ourselves into session coming next November. There's supposed to be a ballot initiative on the ballot, so we can call, the legislature can call themselves into session. It's something I support very much. When we're called into session by the governor, we can only address what he wants us to address, and so that's what's coming. There's, you know, a lot of talk about the critical race theory, and a lot of people in this legislature that are wanting to address that, but we've been blocked from addressing that at this point. And so we'll see what happens in the future with that. But other than that, there's, you know, we're getting close to the New Year's and holidays, so things kind of slow down, and so that's the only thing that I know of that's coming before us, other than the normal committee meetings and things that come forward. So I can't think of anything else. I went off and left my notes at home, which is rushing it, so I don't have them with me, but there was not a lot to it. So other than that and the district maps, since we're going to talk about it later, I'm as they're drawn right now, I'm losing a big portion of the village.
right.
And Perrin and all, so anyway.
I'd like to jump in with a question.
Yes.
It's really, it's apropos for right now, but nothing you're gonna be able to do about it, but I wanna bring it up. That President Biden just announced that any businesses over 100 employees are gonna have to have a vaccination starting in January. HR department tells me we're liable to lose at least 10% of our employees over that. We've already had some people tell us that they're gonna look for other jobs, and it's gonna be easy to find other jobs, and people that have less than 100 employees for these people. I don't know how the states are going to try to help us with this, but it's gonna be a real kick if that is mandated.
Yeah, there was, in the paper today, the governor had a big write-up about how it's gonna be detrimental to businesses in Arkansas. It's a terrible thing. We tried to address that in the last session. A bill did pass that gave 2 more options where an employee can be tested, and if he has the T1 cells, then he's good for 6 months and be tested every 6 months. If he doesn't have, he can test for it weekly, and there's some CARES money available to help pay for that testing. That did pass, but it did not pass with the emergency clause. What that means is it goes into effect first part of January, which is detrimental because companies can go ahead and enact it, and it affects employees, and they don't even have those options available.
I think there's about an 18-day gap.
Yeah.
That's January 4th to January 22nd.
There was another bill that was tried to pass, which basically says that, you know, there's lots of things as an employer that you cannot ask. You can't ask whether they're part of a union, you can't ask if you're pregnant, there's a whole list of things you cannot ask.
Karen?
So the bill was proposing that employers could not ask, but that did not pass. And we were limited on time because of the proclamation of what we could address, kind of what I was sharing earlier. So session got shut down pretty quick. And when we're trying to get the Senate side to agree and the House side to agree and everybody, it becomes and then there's sometimes plotting, planning to get that session shut off quick so we can address things, which is part of the reason that we want to be able to call ourselves in a session. So that is a terrible thing that's happening, and because it's a federal mandate coming down from the federal, there's not a whole lot we can do about it. We can, as a state, we can push back against the overreach from the federal government, and we have in a lot of ways, and we were trying in this one, but we didn't. The House actually did pass the emergency clause. The Senate lacked 1 vote of passing that emergency clause, and we couldn't even get 1 senator to change. And so that 18-day gap is there. And that's about all I have.
Yeah. All right.
This is just this is a procedural question on that point. Does it look like there may be like some class action suits from a group of states that will sort of put this on suspense?
There already is, and our AG is part of that. I forget how many states are involved in it, but it doesn't stop it now. It's kind of like the same thing happened with when they did the moratorium on evictions.
Mm-hmm.
And we finally got that overturned. By that time.
Long after it took effect, right?
So legal actions take a while, and
Right.
so there is legal action towards it. I think it'll ultimately be found unconstitutional, but it's not going to help us in the short term.
Right. You're right. Keith, Saline County?
Okay, start off with the easy stuff first. It's budget time of year, so the county will be working the budget. Just like the POA is having some challenges with healthcare cost. If you listen to Wednesday's, POA discussion there, when they went back out to get the healthcare cost, it came back in at 13% higher. So that's being worked and with the current provider, and I would say probably just like Garland County switched providers, Saline County may be switching providers after almost 15 years with the same provider. So healthcare is a big issue, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars savings if you change providers. So that's a big thing in that. And again, the discussion will be as far as salaries because of the inflation going on, and that's going to be a driving factor when you start looking at any of the budget in the county out there. Where that does kind of hurt stuff is that, and I will use this as an example from MetroPlan, it's a Saline County road project. It was estimated out there when all the engineers did it and they put it out for bid that it was going to cost a little under $700,000. The lowest bid came back in just under $1 million. There was a $300,000 difference on a road construction project, and this is a simple one. This is a roundabout that went up $300,000. So we're seeing it in our road department in the county that some of the projects are going to start coming in higher. And that's an impact, and that's an impact region-wise and state-wise, because you think about the I-30 crossing, which was already $1 billion project, how much money that could potentially change out there. So the counties and all the elected officials are looking at that kind of closely to see what that's going to do to road projects. Next is the redistricting. And as Representative McGrew says, he loses, he had a good portion of the Saline County portion of the village. He has lost all that. It goes to Representative Fite, who's been a supporter of the village for many years when he's a county judge now out there. So that's a change over there. The challenge is a portion of the village in Saline County is now going into the Representative Bentley's district, which is, she's out of Perryville. So I've asked, and I thank you, John Paul, for sending in the comments there, and the people that, I've sent that out to people that are going to be redistricted, because all these people currently are in Lanny Fite's district, and they're going to be redistricted out of Lanny's district to Perryville, and it just doesn't really make sense. So there's a section of, basically the backside of Granada Golf Course is being redistricted to District 54 versus District 83. The comments are in there. I've talked with Senator Sample because it affects him too. His district will be 6, and here's a portion of the village that he has lost. And so that same thing, trying to get the village in a whole to be under all of District 6, which would be Senator Sample, which it is right now, stay that way, as well as just trying to preserve only 2 representatives for the village versus having a 3rd representative. If you've been a historian around here, we used to be carved up prior to 2010 redistricting. We were in 3 Senate districts and 2 House districts, and that all got kind of worked out where we went in 1 Senate district and that. So I would appreciate, and Greg, that's why I asked you to send the letters, the Government Affairs, and John, you sent it, and Joni to send it as that. Because talking with Senator Sample, they listened to our comments. Let's make our comments to try to make the village whole as much as possible for representation at the state level. The good news is the JP district, the village is not changing. It's pretty much, there's maybe a little tweak here and there on the western Saline County, but all the redistricting in the Saline County is taking place on the kind of the eastern side. That's where they're going to start wickering stuff around there, as well as up in the Lake Norrell area, which is had such a large growth, that district has to come down and transfer people out of it. But as far as we are concerned here, the western Saline County district is going to stay pretty much the same. So that's kind of redistricting. And again, this is important for us to make our views known. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But if we sit there, it will change, and it's going to leave us with a portion of our village being represented by someone who has no relationship with the village. We're lucky Richard has the relationship with the village. Lanny has the relationship with the village. It's nice to have representation from people that you've worked with in the past. And of course, Bill Samples had that relationship too. So any questions on that?
If I can add a little, first of all, I'd like to say, even though I'm losing half, I'll still be up here and very active, and I work well with Lanny Fine,
Yeah.
so I think that's good. I've been bothered since coming to governmental affairs that you don't have better support from Garland County. Of course, Keith is extremely strong. I don't know if you'll ever find one stronger than him, but there is going to be, I'm being told there's going to be competition on one of the bigger districts of Hot Springs Village for JP this next year. And I think it's important for the village to have their voice heard, that, you know, it seems like that the village, they see the village as its own thing, and they need to understand that it's part of Garland County, and they need to be up here and involved. And so I think y'all need to voice that out there too, that in this race that's coming up, and I'll bring you some more information later on.
And that was kind of my question too. I mean, it seems like this might be something we might want to do a member education thing on, even send an email blast about the fact that the redistricting is diluting our political power effectively with the state, and try to encourage residents to also comment, about this redistricting process, because it is important. I mean, the village does generally vote, and as the village votes, things carry or don't, right? So, I mean, I think it's important that we hopefully continue to have some of that clout that, we've had in the past. And if they start splitting us up into lots of little pieces, that won't happen anymore, because we'll have less effect on any given district, election or otherwise. So, I mean, I think that, Joni, that might be something we might want to really think about. It's easy for people to go in and send this letter. It's really pretty trivial to click the link and go and make comments.
Right.
And for people to go and actually, make our voice heard, that we really would like to have to be able to act as a community, because we are a community, right? And we don't want to be split up into lots of little pieces, within the new redistricting process, right?
Yeah,
So-
and that's the question I'd have. And Larry's not here. I don't know what Garland County, how they're redoing their JP districts. Because right now, we're split into three. We have 3 JPs there,
And I think it's probably, and I haven't seen it, but I think it's probably gonna stay 3. I don't think it's gonna change a lot, but so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly more important than ever for us to be involved in some of these political affairs. And as Richard said, as new candidates run for some of these offices, we need to make sure that we've reached out to those folks, that we're in touch with them, they understand our issues, right? And they become part of helping us, and not, as he said, oh, that's the village, they just have their own thing, and we're not gonna worry about them, right? So we need to be really engaged, I think, at the board level, as well, with some of these candidates, to maybe even to the extent of endorsing candidates potentially, I don't know, in terms of what they might be able to do to help us. Here in the village
is a huge voting block, and villagers vote.
Right, exactly.
So, if those candidates know that you better pay attention to us because we're paying attention to you.
Exactly.
I think it'll make a difference.
I think so too. I think so too.
Okay, the other portion, and this is, again, more where the village is gonna have to get behind it. It's when the request for the American Rescue Plan dollars go out. The village is actively working on proposals to go both the Garland County side and the Saline County side. The Garland County side, they're doing theirs a little differently, but the village is working with Judge Mahoney on that. And I think that one's a little easier than on the Saline County side, as we've put in process a request for proposal out there, and the village will need to present a proposal to the Saline County Quorum Court, and looking at January for that proposal coming forward, if you can make all the timing. And I would encourage it, and I've talked with Jason Temple, and they're working hard to get that RFP answered so they can meet the January Quorum Court for that project. This will entail the need of the village leadership to rally some people behind it. Because I will tell you, there are several big projects coming to Saline County, and there's $23.4 million available that Saline County has in ARPA funds. And these big projects could suck up a lot of them. And the way the criteria is written, they're transformational type of projects for the middle and the east side of Saline County. One of those projects will probably has zero effect on us in western Saline County and Hot Springs Village. So I'm saying right now to you, and I have previously and purposely invited Jim Zahn to this meeting too, as a former lobbyist, that there needs to be a lobbying campaign. And I can't do it alone. I'm one of 13 votes. But when this comes forward, the village needs to put together a lobbying campaign so that when it gets presented, and it's no different than 2 months ago when there was a huge lobbying campaign and that quorum court was full of people and, lobbying for their position, that the village needs to put together a good effort there to come forward and say the importance of this. And this project will not be, it's going to be $1.5 million maybe. But we pay a lot of money to the state, the federal, and the county in our taxes. We need to take this opportunity to try to get some of that money back to help the village grow. And basically, both these projects are economic development type of projects. They're sewer projects that on both sides of the village that would help growth on the Highway 7 corridor and the Highway 5 corridor, where people, especially on Highway 5, where people are complaining about not having this, not having that. They don't have sewers over there. This is maybe a way to help them. So I just throw that out there. I want to put it publicly out there that the village needs to rally behind this project because that's the only way it's going to happen. So Greg, that's the last thing I had from the county. I turn it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think we need to do an educational kind of blast, right? And try to help the village, the people, the members that live here understand how important it is for us to be involved in some of these efforts. Even to the extent of getting them to come to the quorum court, right, at the meeting, right? I mean, you all see these meetings, right? And you get a lot of people there and, you start making your voice and, Saline County is a big county. It's got a lot of population and a lot of it's not here. And there's a lot of economic development going on. There's lots of businesses. There's lots of things happening in Saline County. And they don't know things about what's happening over here, like the spa, for example, which is going to be in Saline County, right? So we need to make sure our positions are known. We need to make sure our residents and voters in Saline County understand how important this is. And I say this every time when I go to the board. It's like, I live in the state of Arkansas. I should get benefit from the state of Arkansas on some of these programs. Just because I live in Hot Springs Village doesn't mean I shouldn't have benefit to some of this money, right, that's being dispersed by the state and the federal government. So I'm kind of trying to, talk about that a lot. And, we can't continue to get the Heisman, from the state relative to funding of anything, right? I mean, we are all residents of the state of Arkansas. We all pay taxes to the state of Arkansas. We should get benefit from the state, just like any other resident in the state of Arkansas. So that's kind of my soapbox.
If I can
Richard?
hit on that, that's one of my frustrations from the get-go. I went to Bill Sample and said, hey, what do I need to do to help Hot Springs? He said, Richard, won't work.
I know.
What do you mean won't work? It's a private community, and I've run up against that time and time again. And I'll be honest with you, I'm new and I'm learning a lot. I'm not sure how to fight that, except that I know that when the people stand up and shout, that the government listens.
Exactly.
And I haven't, and the village doesn't have a presence over at the Capitol necessarily, or I was thinking I haven't seen a village member at a Garland County Court meeting either.
Okay.
And I think that the village needs to make their presence known, because when you look at the financial impact that you make, it's huge. That needs
For
to
sure.
be touted often to the state
Right.
and to the counties. Hey,
Right.
we may be a private community, but we're still part of it, and we still contribute to you deeply. So I think something needs to happen.
And
with
we've
your
cracked the
campaign.
door open slightly with some of this broadband grant stuff. We need to push a crowbar in there and crack that all the way open somehow, right? We need to get through that.
Keith,
Yes,
when again did you say the meeting is gonna be that villagers need to be at?
It should come to the quorum court the first Monday in January. If the village gets their proposal in by 1 December, those are supposed to turn to the January quorum court cycle. So that's the first Monday.
On Thursday, November, I think it's maybe the 17th, I think. But on that Thursday, the village, Public Services Committee meets. And, there's a lot of members of that committee that have a lot of networking in the village. And you or someone might wish to, come show up at that meeting and try to mobilize them.
And Roland White, the PSC
Okay,
chairman,
Roland.
he knows all about this fact. He was
Okay.
going to come today. I said probably not any reason for him to come today. So he's aware of the whole
Okay.
sewer proposals and the need. And again, it needs to be focused, and I'll kind of lay it out how I look at it is, Jason will need to present the proposal, but then you need 4 or 5 key people to stand up behind him and give the facts.
Okay.
It's this, and that. So put together, a lobbying campaign there that has, people in the audience, but the people who need to speak need to be very clear on what they're saying. I mean, I will look at, here's someone talk about how much money we pay a year into Saline County. And those figures are all there. Someone can just talk factually. Here's how much money we pay in property taxes and personal property taxes to Saline County, and we get very little for it. We get some administrative type of stuff here, and once in a while, we have a villager in the Saline County jail. But, I mean, in reality, Garland County gets most of our inmates from out of Hot Springs Village. But the rest of the time, we're not getting the $2+ million that we pay in.
Right.
And then, then you get your, maybe one or so emotional person who gives what this will do for me, help me get some shopping or some growth, or the Michael Butlers of the world to say, here's what it does for me to continue to grow outside the East Gate. I think that's key, because that's what we're looking for is growth outside the East Gate. And how do we potentially help that development?
I got a question, and maybe it's something that's happened in the past, but why does the village look at investing into a lobbyist that is just strictly hits them every single day? Because out of mind, out of sight. And right now, we're out of mind, according to the gentleman on my left, so we're out of sight. It might be an investment that brings us back, because I think he's right. As long as they just stand there and say, well, they got 2 gates, we don't have to talk to them. Well, there's no one there pounding on their saying, showing them how much
It's an easy
money.
excuse.
And Sam, you hit on a good point, and you do realize that a few years ago, we had a lobbyist. We had someone on a payroll of one of the legal firms who was a lobbyist. And when certain things, and broadband was a big one, and that lobbyist got involved on behalf of the village for that. So, I mean, that's a decision that the board needs to make. The board has changed over then, but there was and the GM has changed, but there was a actual person who was a registered lobbyist who would go, if something needed to be lobbied for, was there.
Well, it just seems to me that this is becoming more than just broadband anymore.
Yeah.
We're talking big bucks. And the money we can invest into a lobbyist and keep hitting them and hitting them and hitting them. And there you get the threat
Right.
of, hey, you want the support of the village? This is what we need. Here's what the village is picking in.
And
And maybe that's something that needs
And
to
I
be
think
brought
a
up
big,
again.
I think a big part of it is that there's a huge pool of money. You heard him say they had $1 billion extra money at the state, right? And they're reducing taxes, right?
Yeah.
So there's a pile of money, right? And maybe there wasn't a huge pile of money before, but right now there's a huge pile of money. Someone is gonna get that money.
That's
And
right.
if we don't go after it, it won't be us.
And it'll be the person that squeaks the loudest.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
even if that money is used, like some of it is just outside the gates,
Right,
it still benefits the village.
absolutely.
And that's the key. It may not be able to use inside the gates, but if you put it right outside the gates, what that does for the village and what that does for the community and growth, because then they can drive somewhere short out the east gate and get their services they want. They want their Mexican restaurant on the east side, you know,
Grocery store.
yeah, so.
I tell you, unless we get someone to start squeaking, it's not gonna happen.
Right. I agree.
One thing I've found over the years is when you send out a blast invitation for people to do something, an invitation to all is an invitation to none.
Nobody,
Yeah,
And we need to take a focused attempt and come up and identify these people who
Good
can,
point.
can talk about economic impact, who can talk about the needs of the individuals for other services outside these gates, and identify particular individuals that can fill those slots. And then just put butts in seats to show support.
and here's the problem, because everything's volunteer. And to get someone to volunteer their full time, to get up there and hit, they're not gonna do it. And so it comes down to it is, we have to look at making an investment for a bigger investment coming back. And if we don't, we can talk all we want, we can hope people contact them, we can send out blasts, but it's not gonna happen.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Health services, everybody's heard about the issues we have with health services, about, CHI and their staffing shortages. I mean, I think that's just the nature of the beast right now, relative to the clinics being open or closed and the hours. It is what it is, and I don't know there's a whole lot we can do to affect that, but, it might be worth our while to have CHI come back and give another presentation to us here sometime in the next few months. I'll talk to Karen about that, to kind of get an idea kind of where their head's at, relative to health services here in the village. They certainly had some big plans, and so did Saline Medical at one point. And Saline Medical backed out of everything that they were doing. So I don't know what their current plan is. Might be worthwhile to talk to them again as well.
Well, and one of the things why Saline backed out was the facilities that were available.
Right, which might be tie into exactly what might be available and what we could potentially help them with. I mean, you look at, like Saline Medical, what if they could get some big tax break, or they get some economic development funds or whatever to build a building over there next to the pharmacy, for example, right? That would probably make a huge impact in their decision-making on whether to come to help us here in the village. Hot Springs, David Childs, anything new?
No, Hot Springs, they really actually finalized nothing significant in October. They spent October just having sort of preliminary discussions on some topics. They talked about their redistricting of their city council districts. They also spent a good bit of time doing preliminary discussions about short-term rentals in the city. Short-term rentals are a pretty big thing in Hot Springs, and they spent a lot of time. That got pretty complicated. They got into just what is the definition of short-term, how long is short-term, and then they got into should they have different rules for different numbers of units. If it's a 1-unit short-term, or a 3-unit short-term, or a 20-unit short-term. And how many bodies, how many heads in beds, and so they just went eternally back and forth on those kinds of things, but didn't finalize anything, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
I can add a little on that short term, that one of the rules that they changed is changing the fees for $100 per person instead of $50 per bed. What that equates into the average VR, or the average short-term rental in Hot Springs, is 8 beds. And if you do that, the math, that winds up that the city gets about $330,000 additional funds for that year. And they also were requiring home inspectors to inspect them every year. That was the two big pushback from that the landlords weren't happy with. And so I don't know village is looking at doing anything with vacation rentals, but,
Yeah, I think that's a
It's on the
challenge.
list.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge for us. I mean, we can't mandate a lot of things like that, I think, being a non-governmental entity. And if the county did it out here, they get all the money. So again, back to why don't we get the benefit of money being collected here, right?
and Daryl Mahoney has said that they are actively looking at some things in the county.
Great. So they'll collect all of those funds and not us, unfortunately. Dr. Murphy, will tell us a little bit of what's happening at Fountain Lake. You got a
Sure. Two or three things that, when I hear, the health services component, I may not be able to help that many people, but we do have our clinic open. It is working in conjunction with, the Fountain Lake, Family Clinic, which does not take walk-ins. However, our grant program does allow for community walk-ins to be a component of that. So it could be potentially an option for someone that does not want to go to town based on the limitations of services on the west side of the Hot Springs Village. So that's just noteworthy. It's typically 4 days a week is our partnership, and it does allow for students and families and the staff, but it is also open to the community. So might mention that. Kind of an innovative project that we're working with the, got a couple students, one in Diamante, another one resides in the village, and they've taken on a challenge. I think some of the business owners and POA in general, I'm trying to back fund an app for them for a period on the community relations side and kind of create a partnership between Hot Springs Village and the school community. But we're gathering information associated with all the current phone numbers, businesses that we have, and really try to maybe create a standalone app with a partnership with the community at large, so that accessing a directory to immediately make a phone call to a restaurant, along with that, the amenities that they hold. They've got a golf section, restaurants, amenities at large, contact directly to the POA, and kind of just have that as a standalone. We're going to try that for a year. Fund that, but we got a couple kids that are really fired up. They did a really good job in our East program in the trails development section that we did a few years ago. That partnership was through the Chamber of Commerce, and eventually maybe we can take this and hand it over to the Hot Springs Village Chamber of Commerce, but they just don't feel right now that they can fund it. So we have those two things going, and then of course I've been coming in and visiting with different types of groups regarding our proposal. We're going to know very shortly, I will as a village resident, on the outcome of the POA assessment increases or lack thereof. And the school proposal, we are just that elevator speech of what we're seeking to build out on the school campus is a K-3 elementary school, a workforce development center that will have about 14 classrooms in it that accommodates constraints at the secondary level, a performance arena to hold large venues. It'll be a 2,000-seat arena. And then, of course, we'll have a connecting road from south end of our campus where you see all the dirt work. That road will connect to Cobra Drive. I've talked to Judge Mahoney about making that, once we get it developed, met specification, that road eventually will be turned over to the county, and we'll have a different pass-through that won't go through the internal part of our campus. With that, we relocate because the elementary school goes on the tennis courts. We put tennis courts. We bring baseball onto our campus. We currently play on the youth league fields up at the Boys and Girls Club. So baseball and softball will come to the campus as part of the proposal. So open to visiting with different groups. Try to do a little 15, 20-minute presentation with any groups in the village. As I've committed as a school superintendent to do committee work, I value not only the input of the village, but I also know as the village goes, so goes the level of support. And so would be more than willing to talk about how we develop the future of educational programming for the school, and a neighborhood group to an individual to a service organization. Just contact our office. I'd be more than willing to present. So that's just a few things that I have that I think would be relevant at this point in time. As far as COVID goes, we are seeing significant decline. We do have vaccine clinic coming up for the littles, through the Eastgate and our partnership. Cody's been outstanding with Eastgate Pharmacy to keep us front and center, so we'll be doing that through our clinic. Vaccines have been available, boosters, any and all of that. We can help firsthand with that. And then as far as the number of cases, right now our caseload, we have no active cases within the district and only 2 students on quarantine, and have introduced a protocol to test on a weekly basis to not have to quarantine. And I do believe that public entities are exclusionary to the mandate of vaccine, or you're no longer allowed to be employed. I think that, I haven't seen that memo that's gonna hammer us on, because we do have a few teachers. I think we're about 78% fully vaccinated as far as our employee base is concerned, so we're not 100% vaccinated with our employee base, but our employee base does extend beyond the 100 employees.
So did you just say that you don't feel that you are under that mandate?
I don't think so. As a public entity, I have not, I'm not seen anything that would tell me that, I promise you there would be a lot of noise centered around it if public schools were under that mandate at this point in time. Would you agree, Richard?
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that question. I thought that you fell under it, so I didn't know there was an exclusion.
Well, I'll do some down and dirty. I'll make a couple phone calls. I mean, we'd be hearing about it, in my opinion, with AAEA, our state association, if that's true of the case. And I've not heard a word that, now, this new extension, because there was a provision, it was gonna happen in November, to my knowledge. So I was watching that, waiting for it to affect public entities. Then it was moved to, January. But I would tell you that if that goes into effect, I think we would onboard maybe another 10%, but we could lose very much 10% of the employee base based on the decision not to do it, just kind of what you're alluding to. That's really all I
All right.
have.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, next up, we'll talk a little bit about an update on the economic impact report.
We have an update from Professor Miller. They're hoping to get the report out by the end of this month, which would be really good if we were able to take it to Saline County in January.
Right.
One sticking point, they are having trouble getting information about the number of visitors to Hot Springs Village. In 2015, they were able to get statistics on that from the HSV Townhouse Association. The association says now they don't track those numbers. So if anybody has any suggestions on where I don't know if anybody in the POA, the Discovery people, or anything has any numbers or data that can help, but please let me know, and I'll get them with Miller, and we can get that in and get the report finished.
Okay.
If not, you'd think you'd almost need it if you're gonna look for future budgets and the whole thing, because that's part of income of what you're generating in here. And that, to me, could be a significant number to not even have an idea about. Makes it hard to budget that way.
I could probably get you some numbers on at least my restaurants, the number of visitors, because we capture that statistic on basically every day.
Okay.
So our system looks at credit card usage using their credit card numbers, and it can tell me whether or not they've ever been to a restaurant before or not. So you can make an assumption that a large portion of those that have not been in one of our restaurants are probably visiting here, and you can see a huge spike of that in the summertime.
Well, we can get the statistics on rental property from the overnight rental places that come in here, and then we know how many golf visitors we've had for the year. So, I mean, we can get you a number. I don't know if it'll be a whole number, but we can come up with numbers.
I would have thought that the lady is putting an investment in the village would have had numbers on that, because otherwise how do you know if enough people come in to justify an investment?
John Paul, can I have Professor Miller get in touch with you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Again, that's critical to kind of our lobbying effort, things that we need to go and start talking to the state about what our impact is, not only of our residents that are here, but people that come to visit here, and what they do in terms of bringing dollars to Arkansas. Is really, really important, so.
One more point for the POA board and staff. If you could take a look at the last economic impact report and see if we've got some comments and some changes, especially about the governance section. Jerry Urick gave us some comments. But if there's anything else in there that you need to polish or revamp or take a different tack on, we need to get that information also.
Any specific area?
No, like I say, Jerry looked at the governance section, and I think that's pretty well done, but just from a general standpoint, the focus and the attention and the presentation. And if you need, I can send you the reports. I'm sure you've got them, but.
I have one, thanks.
Okay.
We also had a hotel impact study done about 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and that would have that in there. I'm certain we've got our hands on that.
That's sitting in the records someplace.
Yeah.
I'll have Professor Miller get with you.
Okay. Yeah, anything that we can give to him to help show those numbers that has some amount of backing, some way that shows how we came up with those numbers, I think is helpful.
We had a spreadsheet that was put together for the 2016, and at one of their previous meetings, we talked to one of the staff people, or I traded some emails with him, and they were going to have Professor Miller's people try to make those contacts, but we might want to revisit that.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Yeah, Mamma Mia is coming up. Starting November 18th, Thursday. I tell you what, it's a great show. And the talent in this village is just unbelievable. Not one person, every person in this play live in this village. And their neighbors. I mean, Dave's wife is in the play. I tell you what, you see people 50 plus with more on the plus side than on the 50 side. I mean, the dance numbers they do. And then we got 23 songs involved in it. I mean, the talent is just unbelievable. And everyone needs to support. Not only that, you're gonna enjoy the show. It's that good.
Yeah.
Also, an update on the bypass. It's ahead of schedule. I met with the director the other day and expressed some concerns about Highway 7, some of the drop-offs and all. The contractor that's doing Highway 7 is different than the contractor that's doing the bypass, unfortunately. But he did tell me that the bypass is about 2 months ahead of schedule. The scheduled date of completion is in August of next year. He thinks they'll beat that by 2 months, and things are going well. If you haven't driven through there, I don't know if they'd appreciate me telling this, but you can. And it's paved most of the way now. It's beautiful. The way the cuts are all is amazing through there. It's going to be a beautiful drive, and it's going to make the drive into Hot Springs a lot quicker and smoother.
Yeah.
I tell you already, that the intersection where they got the 3 stop signs is safer now to go through it than it's ever been.
Yeah, I think they've done a pretty good job of
Yeah.
traffic disruption, like on the 5-7, and
Yeah.
better than I think a lot of people thought it was going to be, because a lot of people thought it was going to be absolutely horrible. It hasn't, been that bad. From time to time, there's a little bit of disruption, but not too bad. So,
Are they close to opening the roundabout? It looks like they are.
They didn't tell us on the roundabout, but it sure looks like they are.
Yeah, the roundabout's yet another contractor, I
They
think.
also made a comment that if anybody wanted entertainment, to set your lawn chairs up as soon as you open that.
Watch the red
I think, visiting one of the job superintendents, they're continuing, they've got curbing completed, so they'll come back with additional pavement overlay, and they do want to open the roundabout prior to having it attaching to the expressway. So the
Right.
decision-making process will be 3 decisions, not 4. If you think you've got north.
And
you've
get
got
rid of the stop
continuing.
signs.
Yeah, and the stop sign would be alleviated, so that, they told us, their goal would be prior to Thanksgiving, which would be in a couple of weeks.
I figured it was close. It looks like.
I don't know that it's that close, but it's close.
Yeah, well, that's what, because I'm trying to get them to at least get me some curb cleaned up and get me off of gravel entering the schools. Because all of that right now is tore up pretty good, and we'll probably be like that till first of the year or better.
Highway 7 out by Sonic and out there, looks like it's almost finished too. Very close.
Yeah, on the west side?
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks pretty good.
And when you go through the bypass, there's a few bridges that's a holdup in through there, but I say it's pavement almost all the way now.
Wow.
Great.
All good news. I think all things are gonna help us for sure, moving forward, so it'll be very exciting. So, if they get that done before the summer season hits, that'll be awesome. That'll be a huge hit for us, so that'll be really, really good, so. All right, anybody else, any other topics they'd like to bring up today to the meeting? All right, seeing none, our next meeting will be on Friday, December the 3rd at 9 a.m. back here in the Ouachita Center, Pond Center, sorry.
Unless we get further notification,
I didn't understand the cap.
Richard, don't run.
Through the paper. Don't run.
Fernandez told me
Go in.
currently exempt OSHA.
Sushi. She's our sushi.